not an expert. So yeah, I'll just be guiding us through our Tonglen practice, which my dear friend referred to as spiritual cheerleading. Right? It's a great term for it, because Tonglen is really a compassion practice. It's said to be a 1,000-year-old Tibetan Buddhist practice based on laying the foundation for compassion, both in our meditation and then across our lives. And in Tibetan, Tong, the word Tong means giving, and Len means receiving. So that reflects the practice focus on receiving pain and giving out compassion. So what we're really doing is we're working on training the mind to transform our suffering, our own suffering, the suffering of those around us, into compassion, which is like super easy, right? So with this practice, we're working directly with our habitual tendency to avoid suffering and attach ourselves to pleasure. And so what we're doing with the practice is we're learning to embrace our life experiences with more openness and compassion and understanding, rather than with denial and aversion and resistance. Hello. So I'm going to read a little bit from Pema's book, Start Where You Are. She talks about the practice of Tonglen. So she says, there are two sayings that go along with the Tonglen practice. The first one is, sending and taking should be practiced alternately. These two should ride the breath, which is actually a description of Tonglen and how it works. The other saying is, begin the sequence of sending and taking with yourself. So the idea of beginning the sequence of sending and taking with yourself is getting at the point that compassion starts with making friends with ourselves, and particularly with our poisons, the real messy areas. As we practice Tonglen, taking and sending, gradually it begins to dawn on us how totally interconnected we all are. Now, people know that what we do to the rivers in South America affects the whole world, and what we do to the air in Alaska affects the whole world. Everything is interrelated, including ourselves. So this is very important, this making friends with ourselves. It's the key to a more sane, compassionate planet. What you do for yourself, any gesture of kindness, any gesture of gentleness, any gesture of honesty and clear seeing toward yourself, will affect how you experience your world. In fact, it will transform how you experience the world. What you do for yourself, you're doing for others, and what you do for others, you're doing for yourself. When you exchange yourself for others in the practice of Tonglen, it becomes increasingly uncertain what is out there and what is in here. If you have rage and righteously act it out and blame it all on others, it's really you who suffers. The other people in the environment suffer also, but you suffer more because you're being eaten up inside with rage, causing you to hate yourself more and more. We act out because, ironically, we think it will bring us some relief. We equate it with happiness. Often there is some relief for the moment. When you have an addiction and you fulfill that addiction, there is a moment in which you feel some relief. Then the nightmare gets worse. So it is with aggression. When you get to tell someone off, you might feel pretty good for a while, but somehow the sense of righteous indignation and hatred grows, and it hurts you. It's as if you pick up hot coals with your bare hands and throw them at your enemy. If the coals happen to hit him, he will be hurt. But in the meantime, you are guaranteed to be burned. On the other hand, if we begin to surrender to ourselves, begin to drop the storyline, and experience what all this messy stuff behind the storyline feels like, we begin to find bodhicitta, the tenderness that's under all that harshness. By being kind to ourselves, we become kind to others. By being kind to others, if it's done properly with proper understanding, we benefit as well. So the first point is that we are completely interrelated. What you do to others, you do to yourself. What you do to yourself, you do to others. So that's just a little bit of kind of a background on what this Tonglen practice can do for us. And so I will provide some instructions for the meditation before we begin, because this practice has a few phases, and I'll guide us through all of the phases. So first, we're just going to ground ourselves and settle into just a breath meditation with stillness and openness. And then we're going to begin visualizing the energy of suffering and the relief of suffering. So what this looks like is that we will imagine breathing in a feeling of heat and darkness and heaviness, and breathing out a cool, bright light. And we'll do that for a little bit, and then we'll begin to focus on a personal situation, breathing in our own suffering and breathing out compassion for ourselves. And this can be like anything. It can be, the barista keeps making my coffee wrong, or it could be like something big and scary, right? And then once we do that for a little bit, we'll practice breathing in another person's suffering and breathing out compassion for them. So we can do this for someone that we know, we can do it for an animal, we can do it for a group of people that we wish to help. And then we'll finally expand our compassion to all of those people who are suffering in the same way. And, if at any time the Tonglen practice really isn't working for you, that's totally okay. You can just drop it and focus on your breath. So I'll ring the bell 3 times as we begin, and again at the end. So just find a seat that's comfortable, that allows you to feel awake yet relaxed. And if you'd like to, you can close your eyes and just take a moment to settle in. Let's start by taking 3 deep breaths. And eventually becoming aware of the natural rhythm of the breath. Gently allowing your awareness to scan through your body, softening and releasing any areas of tension. Relaxing the shoulders, softening the hands. Relaxing the belly. Breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Breathing out, know that you're breathing out. As thoughts arise, recognize them and come back to the present moment, returning attention to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Now on your in-breath, begin to visualize a cloud of hot, dark, heavy smoke. And on your out-breath, imagine a cool, bright light. Breathing in completely, taking that cloud of hot, dark, heavy smoke into your whole body. Breathing in a sense of opening, and breathing out from all the pores in the body, exhaling cool, bright light. And just continue breathing like this until your visualization is synchronized with your in and out breaths, giving the in-breath and out-breath equal time. Breathing in a cloud of hot, dark, heavy smoke. Breathing out cool, bright light. Breathing in suffering, breathing out compassion. Now focusing on a personal situation, something that's difficult for you. Just imagine the situation in your mind. And on your inhale, breathe in the pain that you are experiencing, imagining the pain as a cloud of hot, dark, heavy smoke that dissolves in your heart. And on your exhale, opening your heart to compassion. Breathing out cool, bright light. Breathing in suffering, allowing it to dissolve in your heart, and breathing out compassion. If it helps, you can put a hand on your heart to keep a steady focus there. Breathing in a cloud of hot, dark, heavy smoke, letting it dissolve in your heart, and breathing out cool, bright light. Breathing in, suffering. Breathing out, compassion. Now shifting your focus to someone you know who is in pain, or an animal or a group of people that you wish to help. Just imagine seeing this person or animal in your mind. On your inhale, breathe in what's causing that person or animal distress. Imagining the pain as a cloud of hot, dark, heavy smoke that dissolves in your heart. And on your exhale, sending out relief in whatever form you wish. Something that produces well-being. Breathing out cool, bright light. Breathing in suffering, letting it dissolve in your heart, and breathing out compassion. If you get stuck here, you can shift the focus of the Tonglen to your own feelings, doing the practice for the pain or resistance you are feeling, simultaneously for all those who feel the same kind of suffering. Breathing in completely whatever you're feeling and sending out relief to yourself. Breathing in a cloud of hot, dark, heavy smoke. And breathing out cool, bright light. And now we can start breathing in for all the people who are suffering in this way, and breathing out, sending relief to all of them. Just extending our compassion to all those suffering in the same way. Instead of seeing them as an obstacle, we can see them as the basis for compassion. Breathing in their pain and breathing out compassion. Breathing in a cloud of hot, dark, heavy smoke. Breathing out cool, bright light. Breathing in suffering, letting it dissolve in your heart, and breathing out compassion. Now starting to let the Tonglen part of the practice go, and just returning your attention to focus on the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths. Just bringing your attention back right here to this space. Would anyone like to share how the meditation felt tonight?
I feel like this week it went much smoother than the first week for me. Something that I realized earlier with practicing was that I'm used to inhaling a sense of energy and then exhaling stress. This is very much the opposite, where last week I was having trouble visualizing or conceptualizing the smoke, whereas looking at the process in reverse, it was much easier. And then just realizing how often in life this mimic situations where I'm in, where there's stress, such as like a coworker who's oftentimes angry or displeased, where it's very useful for me to be able to absorb that energy and not express it out, rather than express a sense of relief to diffuse the situation. And looking at it that way in the practice was very useful this time around.
I think that Pema says something along the lines of what you just shared. So she says, people often say that this practice goes against the grain of how we usually hold ourselves together. This practice does go against the grain of wanting things on our own terms, of wanting it to work out for ourselves no matter what happens to others. It dissolves the armor of self-protection we've tried so hard to create around ourselves. In Buddhist language, one would say that it dissolves the fixation and clinging of ego. Tonglen reverses the usual logic of avoiding suffering and seeking pleasure, and in the process we become liberated from a very ancient prison of selfishness. We begin to feel love for ourselves and others, and we also begin to take care of ourselves and others. It awakens our compassion, and it also introduces us to a far larger view of reality. So it's just kind of saying what you experienced, right?
Yeah.
Because like the first time I did this meditation, I was like, I don't know. We're doing it backwards. Like this teacher must be mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Shouldn't go that way. Any other thoughts on the meditation?
So this is my first time, and I was finally got into a rhythm. Visualization, so I'm in a burning house, and then I'm on a glacier lake. And I just went back and forth from the burning house to the glacier lake. And I find it to be a metaphor for how life rolls. You're in the burning house, and then you're on the glacier lake. You're the hero, and then you're the goat. And, it's just the cycle. And so, I did think of some specifics and others in terms of absorbing. They're in that burning house with me, and they're on the glacier lake with me.
Yeah, I like that you turned it into a burning house and a glacier. Because you got to visualize whatever works for you, right? That's cool.
I kind of thought of like almost the whole world being covered in smoke. It became a little bit overwhelming. But then kind of thought maybe I'm discounting the light that other people are putting in. I'm thinking only of the smoke.
Yeah. I'm going to read a little bit about that now. Anything else?
I couldn't really settle the mind to actually start doing visualizations. I mean, I kind of didn't, but the mind didn't even settle enough, so it was constant enough.
Yeah.
Feel the practice.
Yeah, it's part of the practice. Sometimes our minds just doing what they're doing. So, last weekend I had an opportunity to practice kind of like on the spot Tonglen, which we talked about last week and the week before, where it's not a formal meditation practice. You can just do Tonglen if you're like in line at the grocery store and you see somebody suffering, or you can just do it any old time, right? But I was spending the weekend with my family, right? So it's lots of opportunities to practice Tonglen. And like, you know, there's one person in my family that I have a difficult relationship with, and I was noticing there's like all the difficult stuff, but then I was adding on like the resistance on top of that. And so then each night before I went to bed, I was like, what if I've never tried this before with this family member, but what if I just try to do the Tonglen practice? And like, first I'll start with myself, I'll offer myself compassion, and then I'll try it for this person and just kind of see how it goes, right? So I committed myself to doing that each night that I was with my family. And it's not that like it made the like crappy feelings go away, because it didn't, but it made some space around them so that I felt like I could interact with that person just with like, I don't know, like a clearer mind, or just like more spaciousness or more compassion. And with the acknowledgement that like, I'm suffering in this situation, but so is that person. So it just helped a little bit in those interactions. So definitely something I want to keep practicing. Okay, I want to read one other. Hold on, let me see what I'm going to read. Okay. So Pema says, just start where you are. This is very important. Tonglen practice and all meditation practice is not about later, when you get it all together and you're this person you really respect. You may be the most violent person in the world. That's a fine place to start. That's a very rich place to start. Juicy, smelly. You might be the most depressed person in the world, the most addicted person in the world, the most jealous person in the world. You might think that there are no others on the planet who hate themselves as much as you do. All of that is a good place to start. Just where you are, that's the place to start. As we begin to practice meditation, following our breath and labeling our thoughts, we can gradually begin to realize how profound it is to just let those thoughts go, not rejecting them, not trying to repress them, but just simply acknowledging them as violent thoughts, thoughts of hatred, thoughts of wanting, poverty, loathing, whatever they might be. We can see it all as thinking, and we can let the thoughts go and begin to feel what's left. We begin to feel the energy of our heart, our body, our head, our stomach, that basic feeling that's underneath all the storylines. If we can relate directly with that, then all the rest is our wealth. When we don't act out and we don't repress, then our passion, our aggression, and our ignorance become our wealth. The poison is already the medicine. You don't have to transform anything. Simply letting go of the storyline is what it takes, which is not that easy. That light touch of acknowledging what we're thinking and letting it go is the key to connecting with this wealth that we have. With all the messy stuff, no matter how messy it is, just start where you are. Not tomorrow, not later, not yesterday when you were feeling better, but now. Start now, just as you are. Milarepa is one of the lineage holders of the Kagyu lineage of Tibetan Buddhism. Milarepa is one of the heroes, one of the brave ones, a very crazy, unusual fellow. He was a loner who lived in caves all by himself and meditated wholeheartedly for years. He was extremely stubborn and determined. If he couldn't find anything to eat for a couple years, he just ate nettles and turned green. But he would never stop practicing. One evening, he returned to his cave after gathering firewood, only to find that it was filled with demons. They were cooking his food, reading his books, sleeping in his bed. They had really taken over the joint. He knew about non-duality of self and other, but he didn't quite know how to get these guys out of his cave. Even though he had the sense that they were just a projection of his own mind, all the unwanted parts of himself, he didn't know how to get rid of them. So first he taught them the Dharma. He sat on this seat that was higher than they were and said things to them about how we all were. He talked about compassion and shunyata and how poison is medicine. Nothing happened. The demons were still there. Then he lost his patience and got angry and ran at them. And they just laughed at him. Finally, he gave up and just sat down on the floor saying, "I'm not going away, and it looks like you're not either, so let's just live here together." At that point, all of them left except one. He said, "Oh, this one is particularly vicious. We all know that one. Sometimes we have lots of them like that. Sometimes we feel that's all we've got." He didn't know what to do, so he surrendered himself even further. He walked over and put himself right into the mouth of the demon and said, "Just eat me up if you want to." Then that demon left too. The moral of the story is, when the resistance is gone, so are the demons. That's the underlying logic of Tonglen practice. When the resistance is gone, so are the demons. We can work with it by learning how to become more gentle, how to relax, and how to surrender to the situations and people in our lives. So in its essence, this practice of Tonglen is when anything is painful or undesirable, to breathe it in. That's another way of saying you don't resist it. You surrender to yourself, acknowledge who you are, and honor yourself. As unwanted feelings and emotions arise, you actually breathe them in and connect with all that humans feel. We all know what it is to feel pain in its many guises. This breathing in is done for yourself in the sense that it's a personal and real experience, but simultaneously there's no doubt that you're at the same time developing your kinship with all beings. If you can know it in yourself, you can know it in everyone. Any thoughts on that? Being in the mouth of the demon.
I think it would be harder than it sounds.
Which part?
To go up and to surrender, to drop all your resistance to that extent.
You don't think that's easy?
Challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, she talks a lot in this book about wretchedness and like allowing in the wretchedness of life, and also like letting that coexist with like the goodness, the joy, all the things that we want to be there. But like you were saying earlier, Julia, like they have to just coexist. All those things. So, I used to think that if I was like experiencing something difficult or like wretched, that there was no other space for the good things. Like I had to just be in all the wretchedness, like in all its glory, right? And like not let in anything else. And I think like maybe I was sort of conditioned that way. Probably a lot of us were. And I had like a really dramatic Italian Catholic family, you know, and like the least little thing happened and it was like the end of the world. And there was no room for like anything else. It was just like, oh my God, this terrible thing is happening. Like, what are we gonna do? And so that's kind of like how I grew up. Like even if I would like spill a glass of water on the kitchen table when I was a kid, you know, I can still remember the sound of like my grandmother just going, oh, like it was so terrible, right? Like she literally said, Mamma Mia. And it took me a long time to understand that we can experience suffering and also have space in our hearts for compassion for ourselves and for light to come in. And so that's kind of what I've been practicing lately, just with like small stakes things, you know, that hopefully can like prepare me for like the bigger sufferings. So I don't know if anybody has any experiences they want to share about that. If not, it's okay.
I find that it's like a reminder to find the refuge in the concept of shunyata, to be very aware that the illusory appearances of phenomenon. So the more aware you are of the illusory appearances of phenomenon, the easier it becomes to get to the darker places. So taking refuge in that knowledge, it makes it way more easy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I was thinking kind of along the same lines of this inner memory that you're mentioning is in part our brains constantly labeling things as, you know, in dual ways that we don't need to be all the time. And it happens so instantly, right? Your brain automatically labels something as negative or positive. And once you've decided that, then that will be your experience of it. And so then you're stuck. And it's so hard to do that. Along those same lines, I have found over and over and over again in my life that something that I have determined as bad or disaster or a hardship for me, just let time do its thing. And I'm immediately presented with what a good thing that was. And you would think that that kind of repeated performance, then I would intuitively say, don't judge things, don't label them, you don't know if they're good or bad. Yeah. And it's almost impossible. It's like you said, the lightning speed of, you know, the brain's so eager to just organize. And I can have things in a box and label them on a shelf, you know, in one breath. And so I constantly, when something's happening, I can get that sense of, oh, this is like not good, to just try to, as best I can, tamp it down and wait and see. Because really, I know nothing will always, you know, overreacting, and then this thing is turned out to be a blessing. And I was like, God,
And it doesn't just happen internally, at least in my case. I find myself immediately seeking, and this is the ego, obviously, but immediately seeking like validations to that label or story that you created.
Yeah.
Like you immediately seek,
I
like
know.
whether it's a partner or friends, like I immediately cycle through that, like this is bad, right? And let's all talk about how bad this is. And accept it and
Yeah.
300 ways of all of that.
Yeah, it's like pretty impressive how brains do that, like so like faster than Google. That's what I always hear. Yeah, it's like faster than Google. Well, thank you everybody for sharing this space and doing the practice with us. We'll do a transfer of merit, and then our host has a few announcements. So please join palms. May any merit gained from this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. Thank you.
Thank you.
Allie, with your closing announcements. Hello, everyone. We open the Dharma Bump Temple 18